Hello, everybody. Welcome back to some more Overwatch League Pick'ems. Last week of the kickoff clash, or actually the first week, but it was last week, whatever. Uh, Definitely something that we expected for the most part.
Yes, there were but pretty big, you know, major points like London. London did pretty well throughout the tournament or throughout this first week, have a 2-0 record coming into the mid-season madness, which is a lot better than most of us would have predicted probably a few weeks ago.
Yeah, and I think that comes a lot off the back of their versatility right now with Paco and Hottie. They have a lot going for them, and I think that I'm really frustrated that my crystal ball picks can be saved because I would have that perfectly. The hot take would have came in through, and London just looks really dominant. But a team that doesn't look too dominant is the Dallas Fuel. We pretty much expect them to perform pretty well against the Shock and the Rain. However, going into this week, we saw that really their only composition they could play is Zarya, and right now Zarya is looking at her weakest, which kind of led to their fall to not only the Shock but also the Rain.
I don't doubt that the rank could play other stuffs. It's just that they generally aren't good in this type of meta right now. So they're going to need to find their, I guess, the cringe comp, I guess, or because right now they're looking like uh, the Chengdu Hunters of previous years, where they just don't play the meta and they play their own thing, which has turned out good for teams like London, but for a team as good as Dallas, they definitely should be able to play this meta at a high level.
Yeah, and especially because you would expect, especially someone like Hanbin, who is pretty well known for his Sigma play and his Diva play, not being able to perform at that level like he should be, is just kind of so really like surprising from a team like this. But
You
another
know, that's
team,
you know,
uh,
the
but
Paris
yeah, another team
getting
that
their
is
first
completely
victory.
surprising is Paris Eternal. Uh, this week they picked up Dove off of contenders, and he is. I feel like with the addition of Dove, this team has just completely been flipped on its head. Paris just they were able to take a map off the Gladiators, and they were able to finally get their first victory against the New York Excelsior in a team that in a game that probably would have been Paris's even without Dove.
Yeah, I think that this victory, while it is pretty good for Paris and showing that they are improving, it definitely does have a lot to say about the New York Excelsior, though. The New York Excelsior just kind of look flat. They're, you know, in a meta they should be good in. They have been waiting for this meta where they can play Gangnam Jin and Youngbung on their signature heroes, and when they finally can, they still show that they're just not a good a team. I think it's probably a coaching problem.
Yeah, and then you also have someone like Yaki who had some really nice play during this match, but it does just seem like the New York Excelsior's coaching just kind of has them all over the place. And Paris, I believe, took full advantage of that. Uh, and that's not to say that Paris is still a bad team. I think that they just felt a lot more coordinated and a lot more structured than they typically have in previous weeks. But now, going into this week though, East Region finally gets to play, and we're starting off with a hard to pick game in all honesty because you have the Los Angeles Valiant who picked up their first victory in the kickoff clash. It's their first victory since way back in 2020, and is just it. I feel like this has a lot of momentum for the LA Valiant. Plus, they also signed Marvel and Molly, and they also released Coldest. So could this be a new face of the Valiant?
Personally, for me, you look at the Fusion and you see that they go into the finals with and beating pretty two decent opponents, being the Spark and then the Shanghai Dragons, which the Spark kind of went into the tournament kind of flat. They didn't look up to par as it did throughout the kickoff clashes. You know, just a weeks heading up to it. But the Dragons was actually a pretty good win for them because they had that team on download, honestly. But I think it's going to be really tough for this Valiant team, who is looking better. I just think that the Fusion is just a well more coherent team. Is probably going to 3-1 the Valiant. Honestly, I could give the Valiant a map
Yeah,
because they do look good, and they're gonna have a. I mean, this team has a lot of players. Like, I mean, have you seen the number for a quote unquote budget team?
yeah, no, Valiant does have a lot of players, and while you think that Valiant can only get a map, I think this could go map 5, and really it could go either way. It all just depends on whether or not they're playing more push or if they're playing more control, because we've seen that Valiant is a lot better at. Uh, I'm blanking. It was push, right?
It was one, two. I think it was push.
Yeah, they struggle on one and they're really good at the other, and it seemed like they kind of switch it back and forth on whether or not map 1 and map 5 are push or control. So it all just kind of depends on which one they're playing more. I think that Valiant could take this depending on which one they're playing. But another matchup that is quite the opposite, I feel. We had the Seal Dynasty versus the Chengdu Hunters. Chengdu looked really poor in the kickoff clash. Seoul looked to be on the rise, and they finally got their first title in by winning the East Region kickoff clash.
Seal honestly do look like probably I'm going to say the best team, and especially coming into this meta, I feel may or may not suit them. They do only have Smurf right now, but I feel like Smurf is a capable player and he'll be able to flex onto whatever he needs to.
Yeah, I think that they definitely do have the potential. They have Fitz and uh, Profit, a phenomenal DPS duo. They have Smurf, who is amazing. I think that
They
this
also
is
have Vin.
more.
They
Yeah, they
also have
have
Vinium,
Vindime.
really good backline of supports.
The clear answer is that Seoul is winning this. I don't think there's really any arguing that Chengdu can win. However, one thing that we can argue is that Chengdu can take a map off this Dynasty team. Just because they're the Chengdu Hunters, even at their lowest point, they've still always been able to take maps, even off of teams like the Shanghai Dragons, in their 2020 season.
I'm actually going to. I did originally think they were going to take a map, but I do think coming off a tournament high, getting your first title, I think you're going to 3-0 your next opponent, especially being a team as low, I guess, as the Chengdu Hunters.
Well, a team off of not really a high, but more so a low is the Hangzhou Spark, as they look to regain their momentum that they lost in the kickoff clash by sweeping the Guangzhou Charge. Is there really
Yeah,
anything
I
else we
think
got to
there's
talk
not,
about?
really not much to debate, honestly. Which I'm just going to leave it at that.
Yeah,
Charging them,
Hangzhou just is.
you know.
Guangzhou is just terrible this year, and that's a sad truth. But not really much else you can say about this team.
All right. Next, we're going on to another banger match, being the
Yeah,
Dynasty and the Dragons, which is going to be another difficult one to predict, I feel.
yeah, but I think that what it will come down to is whether or not Shanghai can cope with this high paying in this game. And really, I gotta say they can. It is well known that Seoul has really struggled against the Dragons in the past. And while I think that it's going to be Shanghai winning, I do think this is going to be very close. Seoul could very easily win this game. But I do say I gotta give the Dynasty a map 5 loss in this match against the Shanghai Dragons.
I'm still going on that tournament hype streak. I think the Dynasty are going to beat the Dragons again. Although I'm not very confident because every time I say that, the Dynasty seem to slip their feet and end up losing to the Dragons. But it is just a fact of, can the Dynasty figure out this meta and continue their tournament high?
Another game, though, that in reference to the Spark Charge match, it really doesn't need much to explain. Philly versus the Hunters. Uh, while I think Fusion's going to win, I think it's going to be the same way as the Valiant match. I do think it's going to be a close one, just because of the fact that Fusion is a very inconsistent team.
All right. All right. Get ready for my hot take of the day. I have the Chengdu Hunters going 3-1 against the Fusion. That is my hot take.
Really?
Okay, yeah, because they did do that one thing against the Fusion, I think, in the kickoff clash that no one was expecting. And I think they could win against the Fusion again. This team is, while they're pretty, they're pretty good and they're able to make it to the finals, they're still, you know,
The
kind of,
Philadelphia Fusion.
yeah, they're still, shaky at sometimes. And I feel that the Chengdu Hunters maybe lose their advantage since they are a more veteran team. That is just my hot take. It's definitely an easily winnable game for the Fusion, but that's why I think the Chengdu Hunters have a chance. It's because, I mean, really, it's not really a trap game, because since there are other games, the Valiant, which are also probably on the same skill tier, but that is just what I have.
So going into Sunday, we're gonna see the LA Valiant against the Guangzhou Charge. Uh, I mean, I think again that Valiant are gonna pick up the victory here, and I think this is gonna be somewhat of a hot take, but I'm saying that the Valiant are gonna sweep the Charge.
And I am saying that they're going to map 5 the charge, because Valiant is a team that does like to do their map 5s, and
Yep,
who's to say it won't happen again? Although it is kind of difficult because when they're at that map 5 stage, they are really uh,
shaky.
they do let they do let the pressure get to them sometimes, and they do kind of fall. But I feel like since they have their first win, I think that's not going to get to them, since they know how to feel in that situation now.
Yep, and I think that it just comes down to the fact that the Charge are just, for me, when it comes to my decision to give Charge a 3-0 loss, is just their their gameplay this year has been worse than ever. Like, it seems like they're going on a steady decline every year, and just getting worse and worse. And I think that right here they're at rock bottom, which is a perfect time for the Valiant to really show what they have for this tournament. So, lastly, of the weekend for the East region, we have the Spark and the Dragons. Last time that these two faced off, the Spark were able to pick up the victory. Can this happen again?
Personally, for me, I don't think it's going to happen. I think that match was definitely a slip up. I don't think the Dragons knew what the Spark were going to bring to the table, but I think now that Shanghai is going to have to play against the Dynasty, they're probably have to be more prepared for the matches go up. Since they're definitely not the top dog in the region again, they're going to have to kind of prepare more and for all the outcomes. I think each team in the APAC region generally has a different strategy of going upon things. So they can win against one team the next and lose it to a completely different team another time, even though one of the other teams might be higher or not. It really just depends on who has the better way of playing the game at that moment. And I think the Dragons are probably going to have the better way of playing. They're just really good. Everyone on that team, even despite being on high ping, are just kind of killing it right now.
So I actually gotta disagree with you. While I am a massive Shanghai Dragons fan, I have immense respect for this Hangzhou Spark squad. They have so much versatility. They can play just about any tank that is currently within the meta. They can play Diva in Sigma with Bernard. They can play Reinhardt Ball with Goushue. They can play whatever they feel here, and comparing it to the Dragons, sure they have both Fate and Void. However, I don't think that they're going to be able to have this structure like the Spark have as well, or at least as well as they have it. And I think that Spark are just a much more cohesive unit, especially playing under a normal ping compared to Shanghai playing on a high ping. That being said, I do think it could be close, much like their last game, and I am going to give it a map 5 to the Spark.
Right.
But that
So
is. Oh, what did you want to say?
I was just gonna. Yeah, that was APAC region.
Yeah, that
So
was APAC region. Alrighty, so to end the weekend, or not really end the weekend, I guess kind of to start the second half of the weekend, is the West region kicking off on Friday as well as with East region. But this time it is with the New York Excelsior versus the London Spitfire. Uh, I gotta give London a 3-0 here.
yeah, same for me. What a good game for Spitfire to have. It's their only game of the week, and it's against a not.
It is against
And
a
it's
team they
against
really don't even need to prepare for.
yeah. They can just go in, play whatever they want, and they're going to dominate.
So here's a match that I'm actually kind of on the fence about is the Dallas Fuel versus the Florida Mayhem. We saw Florida kind of flounder against the London Spitfire last week. However, they were able to take it close to them. However, Dallas they got swept by not only the shock but the rain, which kind of isn't saying much because they are so dominant of teams. So I think this game right here against the Mayhem is really going to prove just where Dallas falls in this tournament.
Yeah, because, like you said, the Rain and the Shock are looking to be the top, along with the Gladiators. Those two teams are, like, probably the worst two teams you could have had in your first week. And, getting swept by them really makes you look bad, but going against the Mayhem, who is generally a middle of the pack team, you'll get to see where fuel falls. Are they going to be actually bad this time, or are they going to pick themselves up and find a way? If they can't play in this meta, are they going to at least find a comp that works in this meta?
I do gotta say though, even though Dallas Fuel is such a versatile team, I don't know if they can be able to pick it up here. They like I said earlier about Hanbin, we expect him to be able to be playing these diva in these sigma compositions, but he can't pick them up as well as other teams such as the London Spitfire, the San Francisco Shock, or the Atlanta Rain. And honestly, I gotta say about the same for the Florida Mayhem. They have someone who can play a really good main tank, but at the same time, I feel like he kind of falls a bit when it comes to Diva and Sigma. That being said, though, I do gotta give it to the Florida Mayhem. Do you agree, or are you going to disagree here?
I'm yet again going to disagree. I think after this game, I might not have any faith in Rush anymore to be, you know, to coach this fuel to be this top team. But I still think that there's been plenty of examples of teams having bad week and then going on to have a good week, and same for vice versa. So I just think that was probably just a slip up. Like the Dragons, I think that first week of the kickoff clash that the Dragons played in was really bad, but then they were able to pick themselves back up and get a pretty good record. I think the Fuel might be the same way, so I am going to give probably 3-1 to the Fuel.
I think that it will be a 3-1 to the Mayhem. Like you said, Dallas could very easily win this. But a team that I don't think can easily win their match this week is the Vancouver Titans as they go against the Atlanta Reign. Is there really anything else to say other than Reign's gonna 3-0?
Look, I put my faith in DPay. Same with Reinforce. He put in face with that Outlaws match, and the Outlaws devastated the Titans. Same thing with the Gladiators. The Gladiators, they had some close maps, but in the end, it was still 3-0. And 3-0s are just not what you want to see from your team.
Yeah.
And your team is being constantly 3-0'd. It is just a massive They need a change. They need a good team because the Titans have such a hard schedule, and it was just so bad. It's just so bad for the Titans. I feel like they couldn't have gotten I don't know, the Paris Eternal or the New York Excelsior. I don't even know if just to maybe have a chance. I mean, the league's not giving them any chances.
Yeah, no, I don't think Vancouver stands a chance here. Reign looks pretty good with Hawk, and I think that they're just going to continue rolling with this, with these compositions, and Kai on the Sojourn as well. I think just completely dips both Shockwave and Aspire.
Yeah, I think anything but a 3-0 would be a little bit less than unexpected, or I think it'd be unexpected for them to get anything less than a 3-0.
Yeah,
but something
I don't see Vancouver being able to even be able to take a point at all. You want a hot take? Atlanta will clean sweep this Vancouver game. They will go 2-0 on Control, 3-0 on Escort, 3-0 on Hybrid, 1-0 on Push. No matter what they're playing, it's going to be Vancouver's going to get a 0 on that game.
Yeah, but alright, so next up on Saturday we have the Toronto Valiant versus the Washington Justice.
This is probably going to be the most boring match.
This is going to be the battle of the disappointing teams. Each team last week looked really just not what they should be. Both these teams have so much potential, and they're just kind of wasting it. So this team is going to see who can waste their potential the least.
Yeah. But I do gotta say, I'm giving it to the Justice. Toronto might take them out, but these inner struggles seem to still be going on and still really affecting the Defiant. And I think that until they're able to get over all of these internal struggles or after the departure of KDG, that this team is still going to really struggle. And I think that Justice just have a really strong DPS line in Mag and Assassin, as well as Decay. Not Mag. Why did I say Mag? Well, Mag is a phenomenal tank player, especially compared to Muse and the rest of
it. And the introduction of Kalios has been really good. And whenever they are playing Kalios, they are actually winning maps. Like, the Justice can win on certain compositions, but they only, in that Houston game, it showed that, only the maps that they could play their certain compositions, they'll win. But in, the standard, control meta that's just going around, they kind of don't have an answer for that. So I think if they can find a way to not only have a balance of having those good comps that can play Kalios in, but also being good at the standard comp where you have to play Mag, I think only then, and the Justice will finally realize their potential. But I don't think the Defiant are at that level where they are, or they can reach their potential. I think it's going to be a much farther or a much longer reach for them.
That's the disappointing part about Toronto. They are such a potential, a team with such potential that they just can't get over internal struggles. And I think until they're able to finally stabilize as a unit, this team is going to continue to struggle. So on to the next game. We have the Shock and the Reign two of the juggernauts of this tournament going head to head. Who do you have winning this?
Okay, it's gonna be. I think if you look at last week at a certain team, I think they kind of made it clear who the winner was gonna be. Do you know what certain team I'm referring to?
I do not.
That's right. It's the Boston Uprising. The Boston
Oh
Uprising
yeah,
kind of a clear kind of basis towards them because the Boston Uprising faced both of these two teams. Pretty unlucky for them, gotta say, but they did end up fighting a very close match against the Reign. A 3-2 victory for the Reign. Hard fought for them. On the other hand, they played the Shock on Sunday, and that was a very not close game at all. That was a sweep for the Shock, very handily. So
yeah.
that's why
I do gotta say though,
arbitrarily I'm giving Shock the win,
yeah,
3-1.
yeah, that point does make a lot of sense. And then also with the incorporation of Mikey, really kind of brings this team to just a point to where they can play whatever they want, regardless of the kind of meta. If they need to play, the main tank, they could play Mikey. If they need to play off tank, they could play Kaluj. And Kaluj can finally play these characters, these heroes that he was really good at in contenders. And now we also see the return of Mikey. So this team is looking really strong. And Rain just goes off the back of Hawk.
I think the Shock definitely show what you want to be in this meta because there's generally two different types of ways to play, and there's two different very types of just metas that are dependent on the map, and Shock are good at both of those. They have Mikey in for those control comps, and then they switch him out for Kaluj on the escorts and the hybrids, and they generally well balanced team all throughout. So really good.
So on to another match that I think is slightly difficult because, again, Dallas at a low point right now, and I think Vancouver could possibly take advantage of this. Definitely not to the point where they can take a victory, but definitely to where this game could be a lot closer than you could expect.
Yeah, but I think if anyone is predicting the Fuel to win over the Mayhem, I think that again Dallas 3-0ing the Titans is something you should also expect from people who are predicting the Fuel. If you predict the Mayhem, however, that leaves some room for the Titans to, or if the Mayhem does win, that leaves for the Titans to take advantage of that and take a map really. But since I'm predicting Fuel to win, I think if they win against the Mayhem, they're going to be able to defeat the Titans team pretty handily.
Yeah, and I don't want to say I'm arguing that Vancouver's going to take a map 5. I just think that when it comes like how I was saying with the Vancouver Reign match, where I don't see Vancouver even taking a point in any of the maps. I think that this game could be very close and could be taking 3-4 round taking round 4s on stuff like escort and hybrid. But Dallas is still gonna win. I don't think that it's really a contest.
Oddly enough, Fuel is probably their most winnable game throughout the schedule, but that's not saying much considering their schedule.
Yeah. So to close out the weekend is Sunday's matches, starting with the Florida Mayhem and the San Francisco Shock. Florida definitely not gonna win this.
I'm making it a sweep for the Shock. Shock just seems to roll over these middle of the pack teams like they're nothing.
Yeah, I will agree with you.
They look so good on each time, and whatever they want to play with someone, they'll either send in Mag or not Mag. I'm thinking they'll send in Mikey or Kaluj to deal with it.
Yeah,
I think the DPS on Shock actually just entirely diffs Mayhem's. Same with the sports, just all of them are incredibly better than Mayhem's.
And again, we can go back to these previous matches Florida's played, and we've kind of can see the cracks of the Florida Mayhem, which is their reliance on main tank heroes because someone is more specialized in particularly Winston. Uh, and now that he's forced to play other characters such as Diva, Sigma, Wrecking Ball, and Reinhardt, we kind of see him flounder, and which kind of causes the Florida Mayhem to crumble. Uh, and Shock, I think, I will agree that Florida will get swept, and I think that it's going to come off the fact that Shock is going to be able to take advantage of those cracks that the Florida Mayhem has and completely sweep them.
So we have another match that we saw previously in the Kickoff Clash tournament. The Gladiators and the Outlaws.
Honestly, I think this game really has a lot to talk about because we've seen this week, or this past week, that we've actually seen Houston kind of experimenting by putting Pelican on the bench in favor of Dante to play Tracer, which I think has worked out really well for the Outlaws compared to when they're playing Pelican on Tracer.
But here's the thing, though. Here's the thing. Houston Outlaws are only... I'm not saying they're a one-trick pony, but they are looking like they're specializing that Doomtay comp, where they just have Dante on the Doomfist. That is their bread and butter. They're now kind of last term in Houston, just where if you don't prepare for the Doomtay, you're going to stumble and lose to the Houston Outlaws. So, but the Gladiators still probably the best team in this. Still probably the best team on here, or in NA, just in general. So I'm giving it a 3-1 victory to the Houston Outlaws. Because, I mean, Paris did take a map off them, yes. That is something we can talk about. So I'll give them Houston a map, because I feel like they can generally do the same as Paris.
But when I'm seeing the praises of particularly Dante here, I do think that the fact that Houston is so reliant on this Doomfist, and it's not like they're exclusively playing Doomtay comps, or they are bringing in Piggy, who has proven to be really strong on Diva again this year, and
as
Sigma.
well as the Sigma too.
Yeah, no, Piggy's Diva and Sigma have been so much better than they were compared to last year, and I think that it is definitely possible for Houston to take a very close game to the LA Gladiators. My prediction is going to be map 5 for them, though, going in the favor of the Gladiators. To close out the weekend, though, is yet another toilet bowl. This time between the Boston Uprising and the Paris Eternal. I gotta give it to Paris. I really do.
I wouldn't give it to Paris. That is way too much false hope. You are... I mean, you can do it as a hot take. That's fine. But I'm just saying, the Boston Uprising, they had a pretty good game to Atlanta. And they also got swept by the Shock, but that's just what Shock does to any team that is middle pack or lower. But I think Boston Uprising has at least established itself as a team that won't lose to any of the bottom 3. Actually, may lose to the bottom 3 teams. Because I'm not, fully into this Boston Uprising. But they're definitely much better than Paris. I think it would have to take something stumbling inside Boston Uprising, like what happened with Nixel, for Paris to win.
I think what Paris needs is Dove, and they have Dove. And I think that really we've seen a sure, Boston took a map 5 to the Atlanta Reign. However, it's kind of clear that the LA Gladiators are a far superior team to the Atlanta Reign. And the fact that Paris was able to take a map off that team, I think that going into this tournament, Paris is a completely new beast. And while they're not going to be a top threat, I do think that they're going to reach higher than what most would expect. Which is why I personally give the Paris Eternal a map 5 victory over the Boston Uprising.
Actually, I think I'm going to double down and say it's going to be a sweep for an Uprising. I think Boston is long overdue to actually look good. So that's what I'm predicting.
I mean, it's been how many years, and Boston has yet to look good.
At least decent. They've been pulling out some stuff. It's like that one game against the Justice was pretty good for them. They just need to, you know, wrap up through things. Tie up a few loose ends, and they'll have a pretty decent team.
I think that what Boston's main issue, though, is just their coaching isn't as good as you would expect. And if they had that, I wholeheartedly believe that Boston not only could be past these lower tier teams, but potentially in the top 5. And
I have a decent respect for Laurie. I think was a good coach coming from contenders, but
I don't know,
I just think
but
this team needs.
this week does have a lot of potential upsets and a lot of questions will be answered. So that's really all I have personally to say about this week. I'm looking forward to seeing how these matches play out. I think that there's definitely a lot of games that could go either way. Do you have anything else to say?
I think that we've generally covered everything, and honestly, these matches, actually analyzing them, are definitely some of the better, matchups. Some of these are one-sided, like all Vancouver's matches, and pretty much any match with Nixel in it. But other than that, we got some pretty good matches, especially seeing the Fuel play twice, since we'll really know how they are.
Alrighty, well, thank you guys so much for watching. Looking forward to these matches, and we will see you guys next time.